I'm a little late. Ooh, late. Hey, we're live. Hey, this is the 5 a.m. Mester Scrum Show, but it's 8:35 a.m. So we're kind of late. Watching some videos and just relaxing a little bit on Monday, trying to be positive. Someone posted up on LinkedIn about being a positive day and what can you do. So I was kind of looking at some stuff, trying to be in a positive mode. This is the 5 a.m. Mester Scrum Show. I am Greg Mester, Scrum Master and Agile Coach. And here we talk about Scrum and Agile in a practical, tactical way. So you can bring value to the customer, big on value to the customer. But also, so we're not working 60, 80 hours a week to get that value to the customer. Working in a way that we can, as the mission statement says, so you can get home to your family and friends and enjoy their time and do other things. Maybe you got side things you want to do and have fun. We want to have fun along the way. A couple things that's popping up that noticed. One of my little type video things had a copyright thing on it, so I was trying to figure out where'd that come from and fix it from way back. It's funny how the copyright engines and YouTube and all that can find all these little tiny little bits of music or whatever that came out. Part of that is my you got to be careful on TikTok and bring TikTok stuff over because they have a lot of video things that really aren't really good, and it's all copyright infringement, and YouTube hits it. So if you're going to use music, you got to find some music that doesn't have any copyright, whatever. And I think YouTube has a couple options. So just be careful going from one application to another. And the other application just hasn't hit the whole copyright thing so far. They're new. They're just growing. But what do we want to talk about today? It's like we're talking about weird stuff. Two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about empirical process theory, control theory, and what it's missing, in my opinion. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. And then also I want to talk about unlearning. I just saw a video just before I popped in on here, and I wanted to share it with you. I was watching some videos out of some organizations out of India, and they're pretty good. They talk about how they're marketing to businesses and growing, and I can just have visualized the amount of business opportunity in India if you go for it and you see what's there, because there's such a diversity in that country and around the world, actually. So talk about empirical process control for a second. Theory. And I'm going to read from my notes a little bit just to get it going. So it's basically we make decisions based on what is known, is what the essence of the empirical process control theory is. But I was going to say, all right, is it really going to kill some to commit owing to a level that's done? So two phases on this. So many people, what I like about the empirical process control is that we're just not willy-nilly committing to something that to say, hey, that sounds great. We use that to look at what we've done in the past from a team, like a velocity. Let's take velocity as part of that thing. Well, we don't want to commit if our team is doing 40 points a sprint. We don't want to commit to 80-point sprint. There's no empirical process. There's no data. There's no history to validate that that's a good thing to predict for. My question is, what does it hurt a team to not pick what they did before, right? So let's say you're doing 40 points and then you do a retrospective and so this is what I'm going to get into, what's missing. I think it's totally valid to pick what you've done in the past and go with that. And if you did or did not make that commitment, why didn't you make it, and do an analysis study and a retrospective and adapt to be able to achieve that goal, which is what I think most people do. When I see organizations or teams specifically that say, hey, I want to do 60 points. Okay, so what did you change in your process to get, now you're going to get 60, you were doing 40 points. Now all of a sudden you're going to get 60 points. What did you do to change your process to think that you can achieve that? A lot of places, a lot of teams I go to, they don't have one. They may say, hey, well, we hired someone. So magically that person's going to be delivering product and value like day one, they get on board. I don't know. I doubt it. So in my empirical process data, my brain says those people are not really going to produce value to your company right away in the first sprint, at least the first sprint. So, but it makes sense to say, what did we do in the past? Can we do in the future? And if you go too high or too low, well, what's going on? And you do that. to this one point, but what is it missing? What is this? So I can take the empirical process control theory and say, hey, I got 40 points. That's what we do. Based on what I've always done in the past, it's always been 40 points. So I'm always going to be at 40 points. As long as I maintain that check and why, I can always get that 40 points, and I do this in the cycle. What I think is missing is the challenge to do better, right? So I can maintain that theory where it says I did 40 points, so I'm always going to do 40 points. I'm never going to do 60 points. But my challenge, what's missing in that is, what do we do better? And what I wrote is, how do we move that needle, right? And in my process thought point, there's work, maintaining the workload, the factory, right? And then there's moving the needle. When I move the needle, I actually change the order from which the ceremonies or events happen in Scrum. When I want to change the needle, the first activity or event that occurs is the retrospective. From the retrospective, then it goes sprint planning, and then it goes daily Scrum, and then it goes to the review, and then we do the retro again, okay? But the retro is the first one that shows up. And why do I say that? Because the idea is that you want to do something better. I want to build a new database system. I want to bring in a new capability. You know, I want to bring that new app that I saw online. I want to bring this new thing for location. I want to bring this new item, and I want to try it out. So the idea of moving that needle, so we don't have to code it all because someone already coded. I want to take what somebody already coded and bring it into what I did, or I want to come up with a new way to do that. So it's new, it's different. It's not maintaining the same 40 velocity. I want to get to 60. I want to take what we do. I want to automate our testing. Maybe your testing's manual and you want to say, hey, I want to automate my testing so that we can produce higher velocities. So the idea is at the retrospective, you design, you say, okay, this is what we want to do. I want to try this out as and one of the volunteers. So you come up, this is the concept I want to try, sprint planning. You say, okay, I want to reserve so many points to do this activity out of my normal 40 points. Maybe it's a 5-point story that I want to reserve to do this new improvement process that's going to change the needle. Someone's going to volunteer for it. They're going to report out just like any other activity to the team, how they're doing in daily Scrum. And then at the review, they present their findings and what they were able to do and how they were able to move the needle, yay or nay. It worked or it didn't work, right? And they produce that at the sprint planning, the review point for the rest of the team. And then the rest of the team can say, okay, at the net retro, do we want to implement that everywhere? So, but that's what I think the empirical process control theory is missing, is how do we move the needle? I can use empirical process control to maintain status quo. The real challenge is, how do I move the needle? And that's the part that's not in the empirical process control theory. And that's where the retrospective really comes in first. And it's chicken or egg thing, right? But it's one of those chicken or egg stories on there. So I wanted to share that with you. Something that's missing, something you need to look for. How do we get the needle to move, right? We've always been 40. What's 40 40? Why are you a little bit below 40 and why are you above? That's nothing. So that was one of the. Now the other thing was unlearning. I was so trying to figure out what the word is. So I'm watching this video from India on YouTube, and I'll share the link. It was pretty good. And the guy was talking about him introducing a new product, and he's providing this stuff to the users, and maybe the user, just because of this whole COVID thing, just started using WhatsApp, just started using YouTube, just started using LinkedIn, because they're like, oh my God, I got to do everything digitally now, but they're new to it. The developers and the people that are so in tune to the new tech have to unlearn this stuff because they assume everybody else understands this stuff. And they go, oh, shoot, you've never used this before. So you have to unlearn doing it. And what I love about the whole concept, it applies to teams all the time. When people spend all their time building a product and they're really into it, whether it be waterfall or Scrum or whatever, right? So they know the system. They know how it works. Like if you're using Jira, I know how system. you can't assume the other person has your levels of knowledge of the product you're producing. You have to unlearn what you learned in order for your customer to use your product. And I loved it because people so many assume, well, don't you know that you're just supposed to do this and move the data here? They never did it before. They never done that before. So you have to unlearn what you know in order to take that information and share with others. There's a lot of learnings in your brain that other people don't have. And you have to unlearn that so that you can correspond or exchange or hand off to the next person. So I love that unlearning term, and maybe I'll share it on LinkedIn later. But it's just a great term to use. Okay, what do we have to unlearn that when we introduce this product to our new customer, that we don't assume they understand that? We don't want to assume that they understand how to use YouTube, right? Maybe they never use YouTube. Maybe they always use Vimeo. That was a really big learning for Zoom. You know, everybody assumed everybody knew how to use Zoom calls. You had to unlearn that. For like when we did schools and teaching all that, we had to unlearn my knowledge of Zoom because I'm like, oh, I'm doing an online thing or I'm doing a little meet and greet. Every time I have to unlearn and the assumption that everybody else has used Zoom. By now, hopefully everybody has, but there are still a lot of people that haven't done it yet. They're all hoping that we all go back to the office, and sooner or later they're going to realize there's a lot of this stuff ain't going away. And I just talking to one of my coaches in Ireland this morning, and they're going back in lockdown. I don't know. I don't know if this will ever end. So some people might have, figured they didn't have to use Zoom or some kind of virtual training or virtual stuff because they figure it'll go away. Even myself, I'm like, yeah, do I really want to do it? I don't know. Maybe I have to realize it's not going away, and I have to unlearn how I did something in the past that doesn't translate into how I want to do in the future. How I taught classes in person doesn't necessarily translate into a virtual environment. I have to unlearn the in-person training techniques, and I have to relearn how do I want to convey that information in the virtual world. So I love that unlearning process. It was the perfect word for that explanation. So when you do things, you can use that word unlearn. What do I have to unlearn to share something? What am I assuming they understand what I'm doing in order to do? And I go, wow, they may not know that. And you have to make sure you have to, where's your coworkers or where your customers on the same path. So I just want to share that as a positive note, because I think unlearning is a very positive, and one of the other LinkedIn, let's have a positive day. So it's a positive day. One of the new thoughts is the word unlearning. It's a positive thing. How do I unlearn? Oh, I did it this way, and I got to convey it. So I have to unlearn what I do and make sure they're at the same level I am. And don't assume they understand everything I understand, because I've been spending 2 months working on something. So with that, happy Monday. Happy Scrumming. Enjoy your day. Hope things go well in Ireland with their lockdowns and stuff like that. I don't think that'd be a negative note. I don't think this is going away. That's a negative note. Positive note, you have to unlearn what you used to did, and you have to go to the new level. Even myself, I have to do that too. So take care. Ring the little bell. See when we're doing videos. Got to post up some more rocket stuff. We had a good time. Positive note, kids and I, we went out and took one of our friends to a pumpkin picking farm way out, about an hour away from Philly, out in the middle air. It was beautiful, getting all that fresh air, the COVID-free air. I guess maybe there were some sheep out there and just that kind of air, but it was nice to do. It was a positive thing to do. Get out, and didn't have to worry about COVID because there was nobody else there. So it was a COVID-free air environment, and have some fun. All right, take care. Bye. See you tomorrow on Tuesday. And one day we'll be logging out. Bye, 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 bye.